The cold star's 770 words the trading station orbited a dying star, its metal corridors echoing with the sounds of a dozen different species conducting business. Kira moved through the crowds with practiced ease, her pale blue skin marking her as one of the Vathia race known throughout the galaxy for their cold logic and emotional restraint. The Vathi had built their civilization on the principles of efficiency and rational thought. Their language contained no word for what other species called love. They had terms for partnership, for breeding compatibility, for mutual benefit, but nothing that captured the burning, illogical feeling that seemed to drive so many other races to both greatness and destruction. Kira served as a cultural liaison, helping to negotiate trade agreements between species. Her job required her to understand the emotional quirks of other races without being affected by them. She was good at it, perhaps too good. Her superiors often praised her ability to remain detached, while others around her fell prey to sentiment. The humans had recently arrived in this sector of space, their small ships appearing seemingly from nowhere. They were young as a spacefaring species, barely a century beyond their home planet. But they had something that impressed even the ancient Vathi Council. They had unified their entire species without conquest or forced assimilation. They had done it through something they called love, a concept that fascinated and puzzled the Vathi in equal measure. Today, Kira was meeting with a human representative to discuss a potential trade agreement. She had studied their files extensively, noting their tendency toward emotional decision-making and their strange attachment to what they called family units that extended far beyond biological necessity. The human delegation consisted of 3 individuals, but Kira found her attention drawn to one in particular. His name was David, and he served as their chief negotiator. Unlike the other humans she had observed, who often seemed to radiate nervous energy, David possessed a calm that reminded her of her own people. Yet there was something else there, warmth in his eyes that she couldn't quite categorize. "Ambassador Kira," David said, extending his hand in the human greeting gesture. "It's an honor to meet you. I've heard impressive things about your work." Kira accepted the handshake, noting the unusual warmth of human skin compared to her own cooler temperature. "I look forward to productive negotiations," she replied in perfect standard Galactic, though she noticed David's eyes light up when she spoke. "Your pronunciation is flawless," he said. "Have you had much contact with human languages?" "I have studied your communication patterns extensively," Kira admitted. "Your species has an interesting relationship with language. You use words not just to convey information, but to express concepts that have no practical application." David smiled, another human expression that Kira found herself studying. "You mean emotions?" "Yes. Your word love, for instance. We have observed that humans will make highly irrational decisions based on this concept. They will sacrifice resources, risk safety, even die for it. It serves no evolutionary purpose that we can understand. Maybe that's exactly why it's so important," David said quietly. "Not everything valuable has to make sense." Over the next several hours, they worked through the basic framework of a trade agreement. Kira found herself impressed by David's negotiating skills. He was logical and fair, but there was something else in his approach. He seemed to genuinely care about finding solutions that would benefit both species, not just his own. "Why do you do this work?" Kira asked during a break in negotiations. It was an unusual question for her to ask. Vathi typically didn't engage in personal conversation during business meetings. David considered her question seriously. "I grew up in a family that hosted exchange students from other worlds," he said. "I learned early that understanding someone different from yourself is one of the most rewarding experiences you can have. When I got older, I realized that the best way to prevent conflicts between species was to help them understand each other." "Understanding," Kira repeated. This is another concept that humans value beyond its practical applications. Don't the Vathi value understanding? We value knowledge, information, Facts that can be used to make better decisions. Kira paused, studying David's face. But you speak of understanding as if it were something more. Understanding isn't just about facts, David said. It's about seeing the world through someone else's eyes. Feeling what they feel. Caring about their well-being as much as your own. Kira felt something strange stir in her chest, a warmth that she couldn't attribute to the station's environmental systems. For the first time in her life, she found herself wanting to understand something that defied logic. Perhaps, she said slowly, you could teach me more about this? Understanding. David's smile was gentle and warm. I'd like that very much. The warm touch 770 words. The negotiations continued over the following days. But Kira found herself looking forward to the breaks more than the actual work. David had begun teaching her about human culture, sharing stories of his childhood and explaining concepts that had no equivalent in Vathi society. Tell me about your family, Kira said. One evening as they walked through the station's observation deck, the dying star cast everything in a deep orange glow. But David's presence seemed to bring its own light. My parents were both diplomats. David explained. They met during a peace negotiation between two human colonies that had been fighting over mining rights. My father says he knew he loved my mother the moment he saw her argue for the rights of civilian families caught in the crossfire. Love again, Kira observed. This word appears in every human story. It's hard to avoid. David said with a laugh. Love is what makes humans human, I think. It's what drives us to protect each other, to create beautiful things, to reach for the stars even when it seems impossible. They stopped at a viewing port, and Kira watched David's reflection in the transparent aluminum. His expression was thoughtful, almost sad. You speak of love as if it were a force of nature, she said, isn't it? David turned to look at her directly. You've studied human behavior. You've seen what people will do for love. How they'll change, how they'll grow, how they'll become better than they ever thought possible. Kira felt that strange warmth again, stronger this time. When David looked at her like that, she felt as if she could understand concepts that had been mysterious to her entire species. For generations, the Vathi believe that emotions are weaknesses, she said quietly. They cloud judgment. They lead to poor decisions. Maybe sometimes David agreed, but they also lead to the best decisions, the ones that matter most. Over the following days, David introduced Kira to human art, music, and literature. He showed her images of earth-blue oceans and green forests, cities that gleamed with light, and families gathered together in celebration. This is what we're trying to protect, he explained as they looked at a hologram of a human family, celebrating something called a birthday. Not just the planet, but the connections between people, the love that holds us together. Kira studied the image, noting the way the humans touched each other freely, hands on shoulders, arms around waists, children lifted high in the air. Physical contact is important to your species. Very important, David said. Touch is one of the ways we express love. It's how we comfort each other, how we show affection, how we say things that words can't capture. The Vathi rarely touch outside of necessary circumstances, Kira admitted. We find it distracting. May I? David asked, extending his hand palm up. Kira hesitated, then placed her hand in his. His skin was warm against hers, and she felt a shock of something she couldn't name run through her body. It wasn't unpleasant, quite the opposite. It was like discovering a new sense she hadn't known she possessed. Your skin is beautiful, David said softly, his thumb tracing gentle patterns on her palm, like moonlight on water. No one had ever called Kira beautiful before. The Vathi appreciated efficiency, intelligence, usefulness, but beauty was considered irrelevant. Yet when David said it, she felt something shift inside her, as if a door had opened to a room she hadn't known existed. I don't understand what's happening to me, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. What do you feel? David asked. His voice equally soft. Kira struggled to find words in any language she knew. Warm, she said finally. Like a sun rising inside my chest. When you're near, I feel less alone than I've ever felt in my life. When you're gone, I find myself counting the moments until I see you again. David's eyes widened slightly. Kira, is this what you call love? She asked, meeting his gaze. I think, David said, stepping closer. It might be, but I don't know how to love, Kira said, fear creeping into her voice. My people have no words for it. No customs. No understanding. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. David lifted his free hand to gently cup her face. You don't have to do anything, he said. Just feel it. Let it exist. Let it grow. And if it changes me, then you'll become who you were always meant to be. Kira closed her eyes and leaned into his touch, feeling something fundamental shift in her understanding of the universe. For the first time in her life, she welcomed a feeling that made no logical sense. The breaking point, 770 words, the message from the Vathi Council arrived during the night cycle, its priority coding jolting Kira from sleep. She read it 3 times before the full implications sank in. The council had decided to terminate the human trade negotiations immediately. They had classified humans as emotionally unstable and potentially dangerous to Vathi. Psychological well-being. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the final paragraph. Cultural liaison Kira has been recalled to the homeworld for immediate psychological evaluation and reconditioning. Her recent reports show signs of emotional contamination that require correction. Kira's hands trembled as she set down the message pad. Reconditioning was the Vathi term for the process of suppressing emotional responses through neural adjustment. It was considered a medical treatment, like removing a tumor or correcting a genetic defect. Those who underwent it returned to society as more perfect versions of themselves, efficient, logical, and completely incapable of feeling what she had begun to experience with David. She had perhaps 6 hours before the Vathi transport arrived to take her away. David found her in the observation lounge, staring out at the dying star. She had sent him a message asking him to meet her, but now that he was here, she didn't know how to explain what was happening. Kira, his voice was gentle, concerned. You look troubled. She turned to face him, memorizing every detail of his face. I have to leave, she said simply. Leave. But the negotiations are over. My government has decided that humans are too dangerous for us to work with. She handed him the message pad, watching his expression change as he read. Emotional contamination. He read aloud, his voice hollow. They think I've contaminated you? They think you've made me feel things that Vathi aren't supposed to feel. Kira's voice was steady, but inside she felt as if she were breaking apart. They're not wrong. David set down the pad and moved closer to her. Kira, what is reconditioning? She explained, watching his face grow pale as she described the process. It's not painful, she added quickly. It's considered a kindness. I'll be happier afterward, more at peace. Happier, David's voice rose. They're going to lobotomize you. They're going to fix me, Kira corrected, though the words felt wrong. In her mouth, I'll be normal again. Normal? David grasped her shoulders gently. Kira, what we're feeling this isn't something that needs to be fixed. This is the most beautiful thing in the universe. But it makes no sense, Kira said, tears beginning to fall on other human behavior she had somehow learned. I can't think clearly when I'm with you. I make decisions based on how they'll affect you rather than what's most logical. I've become inefficient. You've become human, David said softly. I'm not human. I'm Vathi. And Vathi don't love. Maybe they don't, David agreed. But you do. You're in love, Kira, with me. And I'm in love with you. The words hit her like a physical blow. She had known it, of course, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real in a way that terrified her. I can't, she whispered. I can't love you. I don't know how. You already do, David said, his thumbs wiping away her tears. You've been loving me for days. Every time you smile when you see me, every time you ask about my childhood, every time you touch my hand, that's love. Kira, but if I don't go back, I'll be exiled. I'll never be able to return to my people, my world, my life. Is that life worth returning to? David asked. A life where you can't feel joy, where you can't experience wonder, where you can't love. Kira pulled away from him, pacing to the viewing port. Outside, the dying star pulsed with fading light, and she couldn't help but see it as a metaphor for her own situation. She was dying to her old life, her old self, her old understanding of what it meant to exist. If I stay, she said without turning around, I'll be alone, the only Vathi in the galaxy who can feel love. I'll be an outcast from my own species. You won't be alone, David said firmly. You'll have me. You'll have the humans who understand what you're going through. You'll have a chance to build something new. And if you grow tired of me, if this love you speak of fades, David came up behind her, his reflection appearing in the transparent aluminum beside hers. Then we'll face that together too. But Kira, love doesn't fade when it's real. It grows stronger. She turned to face him, searching his eyes for any sign of deception. All she found was warmth, certainty, and something that made her chest ache with longing. Show me, she whispered. Show me what love is. David smiled and pulled her into his arms. The choice 770 words, David's arms around her felt like coming home to a place she'd never been. Kira let herself sink into the embrace, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against her chest. For a moment, the fear and uncertainty faded, replaced by something that felt like peace. This is what love feels like, David murmured against her hair. Safe, warm, like you've found your other half. Kira tilted her head back to look at him. Your other half. It's a human expression. The idea that somewhere in the universe, there's someone who completes you. Someone who makes you whole in ways you didn't even know you were broken. The Vathi would say that's impossible. We're already complete as individuals. Are you? David asked gently. Were you complete before? Kira considered this, thinking of her life before the trading station, before David. She had been efficient, successful, respected. But had she been complete? Now, with David's arms around her and this strange warmth in her chest, she felt as if she had been living in black and white and was suddenly seeing color. No, she admitted. I wasn't. A soft chime interrupted them, the station's communication system. Ambassador Kira, please report to Docking Bay 7. Transport vessel approaching. They pulled apart, reality crashing back down round them. Kira had perhaps 30 minutes before the Vathi transport arrived to take her away. Come with me, David said suddenly. What? Come with me. To Earth. To the human colonies. We have scientists who study alien psychology. Maybe they can help you understand what's happening to you without destroying it. Kira felt a spark of hope, quickly followed by fear. I've never been away from Vathi space. I don't know how to live among humans. You'll learn. We'll teach you. David cupped her face in his hands. Kira, I won't let them take away what makes you. You. But if I go with you, I can never go back. I'll be truly alone. You won't be alone. You'll be free. The word hung in the air between them. Freedom. The Vathi had concepts of liberty and autonomy. But freedom the deep. Soul-level freedom to be whoever you chose to be, that was something else entirely. Another chime. Ambassador Kira, your transport will dock in 20 minutes. I have to decide now, Kira said, panic rising in her voice. Then let's go, David said, taking her hand. Right now. My ship is in Docking Bay 12. We can be gone before they even know you're missing. Kira's mind raced through the implications. If she left now, she would officially be a deserter. The Vathi would classify her as a rogue agent, potentially dangerous. They might even use her defection as justification for hostile action against humanity. I can't, she said, pulling her hand away. If I disappear, it could cause a war. The Vathi will think the humans kidnapped me, brainwashed me. So we make sure they know it was your choice, David said. We send a message. We explain what happened. They won't understand. They'll think I've been mentally compromised. Haven't you? David asked quietly. In the best possible way. Kira looked at him. This human who had turned her world upside down in just a few short days. He was asking her to give up everything she had ever known for something she barely understood. It was the most illogical thing she could possibly do. It was also the only thing that felt right. Ambassador Kira, final boarding call. Wait, she said, her voice growing stronger. I have an idea. She pulled out her communication device and began composing a message to the Vathi Council. Her fingers flew over the keys as she wrote, explaining everything: her feelings, her experiences, her discoveries about love and human nature. What are you doing? David asked, giving them a choice to. Kira said, I'm proposing an alternative to reconditioning. She outlined a new research proposal, a long-term study of human emotional systems, with herself as the primary researcher. She would live among humans, study their concepts of love and family and connection, and report back to the Vathi Council. It would be presented as scientific research rather than defection. You think they'll agree to that? The Vathi value knowledge above all else, Kira said, hitting the send button. If I frame this as research that could benefit our species, they might approve it. They waited in tense silence for the response. When it came, it was brief. Proposal under consideration. Report to transport for temporary return to council chambers. Temporary, David said, grasping onto the word. That's promising. It means I have to go back, Kira said. I have to present my case in person. Then I'm coming with you. David, no. Humans aren't allowed in Vathi space. Then you're coming back to me, he said firmly. Promise me. Kira, whatever happens, you'll come back. She kissed him then, soft and sweet and full of all the love she was just learning to feel. I promise, she whispered. Against his lips, asterisk. The new beginning 770 words 3 months later. Kira stood in the garden of the Human Research Facility on New Geneva, watching David teach a group of young humans about Vathi culture. The council had approved her research proposal, but with conditions. She would spend 2 years studying human emotional systems, with quarterly reports and a full psychological evaluation upon her. Return. It was a compromise that satisfied no one completely, but it gave her time to understand what she was feeling, time to learn how to love, time to decide what kind of future she wanted to build. The research facility was unlike anything in Vathi space, where her people built with clean lines and efficient angles. Humans created spaces that seemed to grow organically, filled with plants and soft curves and unnecessary but beautiful decorations. The garden where she now stood was a perfect example. A riot of colors and scents that served no practical purpose except to make people happy. The key to understanding the Vathi, David was saying to his students, is recognizing that they're not emotionless. They've simply been taught to suppress their emotions so effectively that they've forgotten they have them. One of the students, a young woman named Lisa, raised her hand. But Dr. Martinez, if emotions are universal, why would an entire species choose to suppress them? David glanced at Kira, and she nodded. They had discussed this question many times over the past few months. Because they were afraid, Kira said, stepping forward. My people experienced a great war thousands of years ago. Emotions, jealousy, hatred, fear drove us to nearly destroy ourselves. So we built a society that eliminated those feelings. But you also eliminated love, Lisa pointed out. Yes, Kira agreed. We threw away the good with the bad. We chose. Safety over joy, efficiency over connection. And now, another student asked. Kira looked at David, who smiled encouragingly. Now I'm learning that some risks are worth taking. After the class, David and Kira walked through the facility's corridors. The walls were lined with artwork from dozens of human worlds paintings, sculptures, photographs that captured moments of beauty, love, and wonder. I got a message from the council today, Kira said as they stopped in front of a painting of a human family. David tensed slightly, and they want to extend my research period. They're intrigued by my reports. Intrigued how? Kira smiled, an expression that came naturally to her now. 3 other Vathi have requested permission to join the research project. They want to study human emotions themselves. David's eyes widened. Seriously? My reports have been compelling. I've described not just what humans feel, but how. Those feelings drive you to create, to explore, to protect, to grow. The council is beginning to see emotions not as weaknesses, but as tools they might have discarded too hastily. They continued walking until they reached Kira's laboratory. The room was filled with her research brain scans, behavioral studies, cultural analyses. But her most important discoveries weren't recorded in any of her official reports. I've been thinking about what you said, Kira said, settling into her chair. About love being a force of nature. What about it? I think you're right. But I also think it's more than that. She pulled up a holographic display showing neural patterns. When I experience love when I'm with you, when I think about you, when I imagine our future together, my brain doesn't just change, it evolves. David studied the patterns, noting the increased activity in regions associated with creativity, empathy, and long-term planning. Love doesn't just make us feel good, Kira continued. It makes us better. It drives us to be more than we were before. When I love you, I want to be worthy of that love. I want to grow, to learn, to become someone who can love you back just as deeply. You already do, David said softly. But I want to do more. I want to help my people discover what they've been missing. I want to bridge the gap between human and Vathi understanding. I want to build something new. David moved behind her chair, his hands settling on her shoulders. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, Kira said, leaning back against him, that love isn't just about 2 people. It's about connections, communities, entire species learning to understand each other. A revolution, David said, understanding, a quiet one heart at a time. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the data streams flow across the holographic displays. Outside the window, the sun was setting over New Geneva, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. I love you, Kira said, the words coming easily now. I love you too, David replied, his arms tightening around her in the growing darkness. They began to plan their future not just as individuals, but as partners in something larger than themselves. The first human Vathi family, the beginning of a new kind of understanding, the proof that love, once discovered, could change everything. Her world had no word for love, but she was going to teach them one. Asterisk.